Gregory Greg Chillak is a new cast member in the wide world of 90 Day Fiancé, and while he is racing to the altar with Joan Khrushchev, I couldn't help but find some similarities between Greg and his mother Lucille and former cast member Colt Johnson and his mother Debbie Johnson. Greg is a 35-year-old baker from Islip Terrace, New York. Joan is a 26-year-old non-profit, non-governmental organization, NGO, director from Kampala, Uganda. Greg had met Joan on a trip to Uganda, while they lost touch for a year and a half when he returned to the U.S. Joan had looked him up on social media. They chatted for a few months until Greg went to Uganda to propose to Joan. I believe that Greg should have considered his living situation at home before he asked Joan to marry him. Greg still lived with his mom because he could not afford a home on his own. He had plenty of time to get a steady job and look for an apartment rental while Joan's K-1 got approved. But I'm sure Greg enjoyed getting his mom to do his work. He was dependent on his mother just like Colt had been at one point in his life. During his introduction, Greg talked about how he loved Long Island. He talked about loving driving in Long Island even though it became aggressive at times. There was still so much to do, and so many people, and there was always something going on. Greg explained that the average starter home on Long Island is probably anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000. According to Greg, he was nowhere near that position to put down a deposit on a family home for sure. Greg laughed that his current living situation involved living at home with his mother in Long Island. He added that as much as he loved his mom, she was a huge C***K block. Greg explained that Joan was skeptical about living with Greg and Lucille as she wanted her own place where she could have her privacy for them and a place where they could just be themselves together. Colt has lived with his mother, Debbie, for the majority of his life, and his relationship with his mother played a significant role in the mounting issues between him and Larissa. When Larissa touched down in Las Vegas, she wasted no time in making it clear that she wanted to distance herself from Debbie. Her decision was firm, and she was ready to start fresh on her own. However, as they began the process of searching for new places to live, the tension became palpable. It quickly became apparent that both Colt and Debbie struggled with the idea of being separated. The situation was emotionally charged, and it was clear that finding a resolution was not going to be easy. During a casual chat with his mom, Greg asked what she'd done throughout the day. Lucille replied that she went to the pool with their dog. Lucille had hung the laundry on the line, which included Greg's clothes, such as his shirts. She pointed out that Greg had so much dirty laundry piled up in his room. Lucille told the cameras that she was still babying her son. It's not something she was even denying to save her son from the embarrassment. Lucille explained how she liked to have a nice meal cooked for Greg. She would go to his room and scoop up all his clothes when she was doing her own laundry. She would clean his bathroom and his room when he left. She would put out the garbage and finish the dishes and the sink as well. At one point, Greg even asked his mother to fetch him water on the show, and she willingly rushed to the kitchen to do so. Lucille even fed Greg a piece of carrot from her plate. Greg was hoping Joan would be cool with the fact that they were possibly going to be living with his mother for a year, up to 2 years. Lucille claimed she wanted to observe how Joan treated him in person and how Joan talked to him. She thought Greg could be naive in relationships, and Lucille feared that he was being taken advantage of because he was very generous and caring. She observed Greg had been alone in his room the whole time, and suddenly he had a woman in his room. Lucille wanted Greg and Joan to sleep in separate rooms. Lucille suggested that Joan would sleep on a futon if not in a different room. Knowing Joan, Greg thought it was going to be a little bit of a tough conversation. He pictured Joan and his mom not getting along and things becoming very toxic between the two of them. Greg decided that if that happened, he would have to double down and find a place. However, he admitted that it would drain his bank account almost immediately. He was nervous about that and was shaking in his boots.